Hello, folks. Or teacher, I guess. I'm not really sure how to make this video, but I mean, I'm just gonna kind of start out with this is a system that I'll be building. I do apologize. I don't have a graphics card, but I can explain that just because I don't have the funds for one, and that's expensive. So it'll be a integrated graphics build system. Something simple enough that I can do work on it. I can do light whatever as far as video stuff goes. But yeah, we have just going through the parts, a B550M Pro VDH Wi-Fi motherboard from MSI with onboard Wi-Fi because my router is quite far to route to as far as LAN cable, and that's just kind of unnecessary for me. I have a AeroCool mid ATX case, just so there's plenty of room in case I do want to add a GPU later, which I do plan on eventually. Excuse me. We have an EVGA 600 watt bronze 80 plus power supply. It is semi-modular. Last time I built a computer, I did non-modular, and the excess of cords was really irritating to deal with. So trying to do it right this time and kind of make sure I don't have as many cords just stuffed in the computer. Though I should have plenty of space with the kind of case I have. Shouldn't be as much of a problem, but oh well, there you go. And then we do have AMD Ryzen 5 5600G. As far as budget goes, it's kind of the best one for its buck. With good integrated graphics, so you could even do light gaming if you wanted on it, light video editing, and any of my school stuff I needed to get done nice and easy. But this isn't really a gaming centered rig, so I'm not too concerned with the graphics issue at the moment. But Ryzen's always done me super solid. I believe it has 6 cores, 8 threads. Oh, I should look at the box set. I'm not too sure off the top of my head. I believe it has 6 cores, 8 threads. I'm sure I can get corrected if I'm wrong. But the last one I had a Ryzen 5 2600 before. It was 6 cores, 8 threads, and it was amazing. Did really, really good and helped me do all my music stuff, plugins, run DAWs, and all that kind of stuff just perfectly. And of course, it does come with the AMD Stealth Wraith cooler, so you don't have to buy a third-party aftermarket cooler if you don't want to. This is good for general stuff. If you are going to be pushing your computer a lot more, obviously you're going to want to get one. It's not water cooled, it's just an AIO, so no big deal there. I'm not too concerned with something that much crazy here. And then as far as storage goes, super simple at the moment. I have a M.2 SSD, and it's just a Team Group 512 gigabyte, drive. Last time I had one, it was a Samsung. I think it was an 870 EVO Pro. These have always done super, super well. They don't get too crazy hot or anything like that. They're stupid fast. They load up your OS like that. Really, really like it. It's really, really calm and cool, quiet, and out of the way. So they work really, really good. My board has a slot for one, so that'll be the only one I have in there. If I add any more, I'll have just some SSDs and the SATAs. And then for cooling, I have just added, I believe there is a fan in here, but I have 2 Arctic P12 PDLUMs. They're like $7, $8 each fan. They're just simple black, and I forget what kind of bearings they are. I promise I did research. They're the fluid dynamic bearings, and the reason I picked that is they're usually a little bit on the quieter end. I'm not into RGB or anything like that right now with this build. It's not really what I was looking for, just something calm, quiet, simple, and really just not super flashy. There is, on this case, a little RGB line, but honestly, even with the case, I was going for finances. It's something cheaper, so it's like a $50-$60 case. Last time I got a Cougar MX330, and it just wasn't that good. And it was definitely a full tower case, but it just was bad plastic, bad components, was not into it. So decided to try a different kind. It's not like the most popular brand or anything like that, but the reviews I saw on PC Part Picker weren't so bad, and I figured I'd give it a shot and see what happens. So, other than that, nothing much. I have a Razer Ornata keyboard for a peripheral, or not peripheral, but blanking on my terms, an hour plugin or whatever, and a Red Dragon. I think it says the Impact mouse. As well, just because I like to have the different options, because it has 12 buttons on the side, and you know, if you are a gamer, it is nice, but it also is just nice to have those hotkeys available to you on your mouse. Nothing else special. A 24-inch Dell monitor that's 75 hertz. Yeah, let's get to it. Cool. Okay, so we get started with some of the basic stuff. I do apologize. I don't have the RAM quite yet. I do have, I want to say it's Silicon Valley or Silicon Power. They're 2x8, 16 gigs for 3200 MHz. They're pretty fast, decent standard. It's only DDR4 just because DDR5 is ridiculously expensive still, and I'm not quite ready to invest in that yet. But you know, they're great sticks. I just don't have them at the moment. They were late today and they're coming in tomorrow. So I'll end up adding those after the fact, but they would go into your slot 1 and slot 3 just because you are supposed to stagger them. It'd be 1, 3, and then if you were to add 2 more sticks, it would be 2 and 4, since they don't go in 1 and 2, not like that. And I only have 2 sticks, so that's fine. This board can take up to 128 gigs of RAM, but I don't need that many or that much. Really, it's not necessary. So I'm just gonna do some of the basic installs right now, just to kind of get things started. And it's been a while since I built a computer, so I will be a little rusty as I'm looking through things, but we can go through some of the basic stuff. So at the moment, I'm just gonna install the processor. So of course, being wary not to touch your pins because these are very easily breakable, and honestly, I'm just going to take a quick look. I don't believe any of them are bent. Thank goodness it came in good condition, just because these things are expensive. Beautiful. So for those who don't know, Ryzen is a little bit different than Intel as far as how their chips go in. I think we went over this in school. I'm sorry, I can't remember at the top of my head, but they do install a little bit different because the pins tend to be, for Intel, on the board itself. With Ryzen, it's on the chip itself. So if we're going to put the processor in, we're going to want to raise this lever all the way up. There is a little arrow, a little gold arrow on the processor that's going to match up with a little arrow that's going to be on the CPU. Now, the biggest part for me is trying to see where that arrow is, so sorry if my big head is in the way. There it is. So it's going to go just like that. You can kind of hear it click in. You'll push down that lever. Voila. It's in there. Perfect. So at this point, this is where we would mount the cooler. Before I do that though, I want to throw this, the M.2 on real quick. This is probably the easiest install. I literally honestly just did this today at work, trying to image one for a Dell 7080 Optiplex, and which ended up failing because our image wasn't quite right. So, hooray! So I got it out. Let's put this up here because I do have to take off the heat sink shield right here. And
And then as far as these go, these are made to definitely dissipate the heat that this drive is going to generate, because it's still going to have heat when it's running, especially depending on what it's running. And then there's two different thoughts on this. Some people like to keep that heat shield off, just because if they have a lot of cool air flowing through their case, it can hit, you know, your M.2, and that can keep it cool. But if you don't have a ton of fans, I never really have a ton of fans going, just a little bit, I'm going to keep that heat sink shield on, and it should be just fine. So let's go ahead and plug her in. And it'll go in real easy right there, just like that. And then this will go back on top. Oopsies, lots of screws. You have to take off. You want to make sure you take off the little blue tape, because there's a thermal pad that's on the heat shield. Oops, there we go. That's going to be absorbing the heat from this right here, and that's really important. I'm using screws, so this is already going a little silly. Oopsies. Screw. I'm sure people already know what happened. So it definitely just disappeared. I'm not nervous or anything. Oh, found it as it fell to the ground. We have our fan that will go on, and then I'm just sure. There, depending on the fan you have, they all can go on differently, depending on the mounting hardware you have. Especially if you're going toward water cooling, it can be a little different. So, I'll probably end up skipping some of this just so you don't have to hear me ramble and looking through. But I am going to double check just to make sure I don't have to add hardware on here. I don't think I do. Okay, so the other thing too that you're going to want to do, you need thermal paste. That is it's small as it is a big deal for heat dissipation with your processors. You're going to want to make sure you have some. There's all kinds of different ones out there. I just have Arctic Silver. So you'll want to do about the size of a dot, like a pea dot. Do any more than that, it's going to get messy and just very ridiculous and all over the place, and that's not something we're going to want to do. So and to be honest, I may have to end up redoing this because this part of the fan definitely sticks out in regards to where the RAM is. So I may end up having to take this off in the first place and redoing it, but that's no big deal. I might even be able to just get this part off of it still. But for the moment, we can go ahead and we'll be able to plug this in. So the other thing is making sure you plug in your cords to the right areas, because you will need to. So there should be, because there's one cord, you'll pop it into, there should be a fan socket, and there it is. At the very top, you'll see CPU fan. go. Just like that. Not bad, there we go. Not too much going on. Yeah, and that's about it for some of the basic stuff. And yeah, we'll just kind of start getting this ready to be put into the computer. Cool. All right, so we are getting into the actual putting of it in into the desktop. I'm sorry, my English is really messed up. I've worked at both my jobs today, and it's probably 12 o'clock in the night now, and I have no other time to do this. So I'm just very tired. So we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna pop off the side panels. I'm gonna actually move this a little bit out of the way. Oh, smart, so we first with you. And so we're definitely gonna have to. There we go. Oh, there's two on that side. So we're not gonna take it off quite yet. We'll do that at the end. Alright, cool. So, there are a little baggie of parts. And we have our little manual as well. Just some extra information, typically on how to get your board in. And there's going to be some stuff that'll tell you how to install your motherboard, your PSU, your GPU. Looks like they have stuff if you want to add a mechanical hard drive. Usually the 3.5 inch ones, the bigger ones. You really don't see those very often. I've rarely seen them at work. We definitely have the 2.5, not even just SSDs, we do have 2.5 mechanical hard drives. I've seen we have tons of those. But those are also not that fast, and they're kind of one of those things you want to get out of the way. But you have options for installing each one. How to install a radiator as well if you do water cooling at all. Again, to that, it tells you how to install that on here. And honestly, this isn't the only way you can do it. If you get into this a little bit and you start really looking into it, there's different ways to apply a radiator depending on how big your machine is, and the different mounting options it has. And then of course it has some options for fans as well. So I personally kind of do my own thing with the fans. Last time I had 3 up front and 1 in the back. These 3 were doing intake, and we're pushing out this way with 1 being your outtake. And that's typically how you want to do. You don't want a ton on your outtake, because you want a lot that's pushing cool air at here, or into your peripherals. So that's nice to have, but I'm not going to use it so much. We do have all of these really long, good lord, really long connectors, and these are what are going to enable any of the, like your USB, your headphone, your speaker, reset switch. Apparently this thing has an SD and a micro SD card option to put into the case. I did not know that. That's kind of neat. And of course it's got an LED option because it does have an LED on the front. There is a big old cage here for your PSU, your power supply. That's kind of partly why I got it as well. I kind of wanted to do that just to keep things out of the way, and you can hide cables in it too, which is kind of like, ooh, yes please, big deal. I don't know why we have that right there, but and of course we have what looks like a Molex connector for this fan. So this is one of those things we start looking at where you can mount fans, and I was not realizing there is no option to put a fan really in here, except for right here. You can put 2 fans up here that'll be pushing up, and I don't know about the front. I'm gonna have to look into that. I think I can put some right here into these divots. I could possibly screw in there. I don't know. I'll have to look into that. If so, I definitely want one pushing up, one pushing this way, and the air kind of going up into the outtake. All right, so we got the power supply and the motherboard locked in, and they are all plugged in as well. I'm just looking at the back at the moment because I was doing some cable routing, cable management. My first one did not turn out super well, and so I really wanted to make sure I get this one pretty good and nice and clean. So aesthetically, you know, this is definitely what I wanted to go for, something a lot clean. Now, granted, I do not have the graphics card in here, so that probably would add a little bit more cables, but the cable I have for it is currently stuffed in here. There were two hard drive bays for the big ones right here, but I don't use those big mechanical hard drives. I'm not trying to build a NAS or anything like that, so I took them out. I put the cords in here and stuff in here because honestly I don't have any other purpose for that. So turning this around, make sure it's in the camera well enough. All right, I ended up mounting the fans a little different just because they're a little funny as far as the front panel and where they can be essentially screwed in with the cables and everything. And I may end up fixing these up a little bit, and like how they were zipped, it was already zip tied up here and kind of just made it not that pretty. No big deal. I put one here to push air this way, and then I have one here as well at the bottom pushing air up, and then this is my outtake, and so the air that's going this way upwards will go out the back exhaust right here. And then of course we have the generic CPU fan installed as well. I have my power to the motherboard from the PSU right here, and that's going to be like, I believe it's an 8x8. I have to refer to my manual as far as the pins. We have the CPU fan, or I'm sorry, not the CPU fan, but the main the PC tower fan is plugged into sysfan 1. I have the bottom fan here plugged into sysfan 3 actually, and then I have sysfan 2 has this fan right here, and then I have it kind of routed out here, so it's kind of a way, again, I have to kind of clean this up still a little bit on the inside just because I could not find a really good area for my actual CPU power from the PSU. This big old thick cord right here, I didn't have a really good place to funnel it, other than it's either going to the bottom or it's going over the top. And if it was to come out of the top right here, it's not long enough, unfortunately, to reach over here, unless I can find an extension, and I just don't have that on me at the moment. So not a big deal. It's still pretty out of the way. I'll end up zip tying it probably to the side over here just to keep it really out of the way. No big deal. And then we have our typical LEDs and button switches and powers for the front I/O plugged down in here to their various slots according to the motherboard manual. And then of course this will be, it's kind of like it's not a Molex. It says it's a SATA cable. I don't really understand that. I think that's just an LED connector of some kind for the front panel's LED. You know, that's about it. There's nothing much else to talk about really. I mean, I got the drive in here. You can see your CMOS battery here. I didn't actually check nothing, but there's an LED switch right here. I'm not sure what the deal is with that. But that's something I'm noticing as I'm looking. And I honestly didn't check. Oh, there it is. So, right here. Oh, no. That's not it either. Welcome to learning in the moment, I guess. There should be a... maybe it's near here, but I don't see it. Usually there's a CMOS button, and I guarantee you there is one here. I just don't know where it's located or see it in the lighting I have. Oh well, it is, I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, this is my system at the moment. Like I said, I'm running an AMD Ryzen 5 5600G integrated graphics so that I can do things without having to get a GPU at the moment. Eventually, right in here, there will be 2x8s of 16 gigs of RAM. They're running at 3200 mHz, and 512 gig M.2 drive. And eventually we'll add more to this, but it's a decent decent machine for the moment, and it's got onboard Wi-Fi. I don't have to worry about that. Yeah, that's my machine. As soon as I have it all hooked up and turned on and everything, I'll end up sending the video, and you guys will see the end result. And that's about it. So, other than that, thank you for coming on this journey with me, and I hope this qualifies as a good grade. Okay, thanks, bye.